about, no one's asked me about. One of the things that was really interesting about the Snowden revelations coming out, and for Joan and I, we wanted to know, how is everybody going to react to this? So you signed in, user license agreement on every social app you signed up for. If you were aware of the cameras on the street already, but then someone stepped forward and said, no, they got it all. They got all your emails, they got all your texts. It's all being stored away in the NSA facility, either in Bluffdale, Utah, or in the new, bigger one that they're building, the original headquarters. What was going to happen when people found out, and would they actually care? Do you actually care, or did you say, well, if I didn't do anything illegal, I'm totally fine with it. It's great. But what we think is a really interesting route, story-wise, for us is, what if there was an entity that really did care about privacy and wanted to do something about it and had a real problem, not only with what the government is doing, but has knowledge of someone having built the machine, and they want to take matters into their own hands. But they realize, if you're living in an Orwellian surveillance state, they have to resort to tactics that are almost guerrilla-like, and we think that that's a very fun avenue to explore. That's what I wanted to talk about.
Well, with the scandal coming out that there is actually spying going on, I saw it kind of cutely tied in with the press release. But is that going to be expanded upon more in season 3, or?
I think it's a commentary on the side part of the show that it colors the show, it gives it a depth and an interest. Or you say, like, no, that's actually, as everyone always says, it's no longer science fiction, that's science fact. But I think there's always, the dramatic narrative is what has to compel the show, and their interactions of our characters, and that's what people really come to see. So, the show can get too much up, and we can disappear into our own navels and talk about all this stuff on an intellectual, theoretical level. But I think it's a really cool, fun thing to sit there 2.5 years later to see a reel where we're intercutting actual news footage with stuff Jonah wrote 2.5 years ago, and you're going, wow. That's fun. That's fun.
Can you talk a little bit about Amy Acker being added as a series regular and how much you're going to be using her?
She's mean. She's mean. She's like the nicest mean person I've ever had. I think Joan and I talk about this a lot, whether it's Elias or Root, is in the entity that I was just discussing prior. The most compelling villain is always the one that makes a lot of sense. It's like the craziness of reading the manifesto of Ted Kaczynski is that there's a lot of arguments that man made, as crazy as he was, and as unforgivable the actions that he took. He made a lot of sense in some of the things he was saying that were very true. And I think whether we're talking about Root or we're talking about Elias or this other entity that I mentioned, it's fun when someone who is your adversary has very compelling arguments. And I think that's what Harold Finch is starting to recognize with Root. She's done some terrible things, but the woman makes a lot of sense. That's fun.
With the move away from the police department a little bit, how is Carter and Fusco going to kind of be continued to be involved in the story?
I think Carter almost finds herself in an untenable Serpico position where she's being demoted to uniform, and now...
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I think now we have to wonder, what is she going to do about this? She killed her boyfriend. She killed Szymanski. Cost her her job. Threatened her son. And now it seems like HR is ascendant with the Russians. And I think the first part of the season is going to be framed by that. It's like, what is Carter up to? And I think it's going to be really, really compelling, powerful material that we have heading into the first season. And her relationship with Elias.
So Sarah on this show now full time, how is that going to change the dynamic as well? She's great. I really love that she's on the team.
She's so fun. I mean, there's something about her that when she's threatening you with a smile, like this flight of fancy that she takes with the character, I just think she adds a crazy element to the show that's dangerous and keeps you off kilter. And the interesting part is, the very last beat, the episode, she's in a loony bin and gets caught from the machine. So where's that going? We don't know where the machine is. We don't know if it's growing and evolving, but we know that it's reached out to a third party now, ever since God Mode episode, which is a lot of fun. We got to do that again.